Is romance dead? Or at least are romance movies dead? It does seem to be the case, at least in theaters. What was once a reliable draw has since fallen further and further every year. I suppose that many movies are romantic to some degree, if by romance you mean the slightest hint of sexual tension and maybe a kiss or two. But we're talking about films that, at their core, explore the attraction between two people. The decline in romance movies is certain, though the cause is not. Is it because of the Me Too movement, or because of changing cultural values? Are romance movies too stale, or are they not erotic enough? Romance and its core, love and desire, are old genres that were Hollywood mainstays from the 1930s to the 1950s, whether with classics like Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, and Singing in the Rain, or with the sensual undertones apparent in film noir. And it seems that almost all movies have some sort of romantic subplot. The 80s and 90s were big for romance movies, specifically rom-coms. But as we entered the 2000s, it was like someone flipped a switch. Franchise films became the norm. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, X-Men, Spider-Man, Bourne, Marvel, The Dark Knight, and more. Most of these movies already had some existing intellectual property that was exclusive to studios, and they all did big money. Take these two numbers for example. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is a 2003 rom-com starring Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey. It had a $50 million budget and made $178 million, which is a respectable figure. That same year, The Last Samurai was released. It starred Tom Cruise, had a $140 million budget, and grossed $457 million. The keen-eyed among you will notice that both of these movies made roughly 3 times their budget at the box office. But the delta between the final numbers, $178 million and $457 million, is massive, almost $280 million. While romance movies are cheaper to make and thus pose less of a financial risk, they're also much less of a financial reward, and unless they're wildly successful, don't move the needle while also taking up valuable screen real estate. So romance movies are dying in theaters. We'll circle back to that in a bit. But let's consider why they're falling short. Why there are fewer viewers is much less clear, though I think there might be a few contributing factors. 1. People's tastes have changed, particularly towards horror, drama, fantasy, sci-fi, and superheroes. Part of this might be because of increasing ticket prices. Something that meshes with the current cultural zeitgeist is worth spending money on. Something that no one else is watching might not be. 2. Romantic culture has changed. People are going on fewer dates and getting married later. 3. The Me Too movement and rise in feminism has put a lot of romance movies under the scope, if not the scalpel. Female roles were typically demure or reliant on a man for satisfaction. Some movies, for lack of a better word, romanticized troubling things like harassment and stalking. Again, cultural change. 4. Romance movies are either very high budget in the case of expensive casts or very low budget in the case of independent features. The middle has virtually dropped out, and that's the case with studio features across the board. The movies just don't move the financial needle. And 5. A decrease in star power. Romantic movies rely on chemistry between two stars, ideally two well-known stars. La La Land was a resounding success, and made $448 million on a budget of $30 million. It drew on the star power of Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, as well as the virtuosity of director Damien Chazelle, who 2 years prior had directed Whiplash, perhaps the most acclaimed film of 2014. You just don't get many movies where all the stars line up for an independent feature. There are some filmic counterpoints to all of this, of course, but all of them are based on intellectual property. 50 Shades of Grey, Mamma Mia, The Twilight series, and Beauty and the Beast. Of course, one of the highest grossing films of all time, Titanic, is also a romantic film. It also had the thrust of one of the world's best known tragedies, along with James Cameron, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Kate Winslet behind it. Romance movies are dying in theaters, but they're thriving on streaming services like Netflix. This coincides with the previous reasoning regarding money and screen real estate. Theatrical space is necessarily limited and could be used for monies that'll draw larger crowds. It's different for streaming, where the number of screens is virtually unlimited. In fact, the genre might be better suited for streaming than the big screen. What matters isn't box office receipts, but hours streamed and a catalog worth subscribing to. Romance movies, cliched as they are and relatively suited to smaller screens as opposed to blockbusters, can and do thrive on services like Netflix. The Kissing Booth, released in 2018, was viewed widely and led to Netflix turning it into a trilogy. And, thanks to the cliches involved, they can be churned out for different demographics faster than a movie that relies on visual effects. So, are romance movies dead? At the theaters, yes. On streaming services, no. Whether that changes remains to be seen.